has always advised people against keeping stone idols at home. If you keep them, you must maintain them every day with the right kind of processes. If a deity is consecrated through mantras, and if the necessary maintenance does not happen on a daily basis, the deity becomes a withdrawing energy and can cause immense harm to people who live in the vicinity. Unfortunately, many temples have become like this because of improper maintenance by people who do not know how to keep them alive. Prana Pratishtha is different in that it uses your own life energies to consecrate something. When you consecrate a form in this way, it does not need any maintenance. It is quite literally forever. When I fulfilled my mission, which was the consecration of the Dhyana Linga, a subtle energy form with all chakras operating at their optimal capacity at the Isha Yoga Center in Coimbatore, in southern India, in the year 1999. It was through Prana Pratishtha. This is why there are no rituals in the shrine. None is required. Dhyana Linga does not need any maintenance because its vibrancy will never fluctuate. Even if you take away the stone part of the structure, it will remain the same. Irrespective of physical changes that may happen over time, the energy form will not perish. This is because the real form is made of a non-physical dimension. It is indestructible. The Indian temples were never places of prayer. The tradition was that you had a shower first thing in the morning and went directly to the temple, sat there for a while, and only then began your day. The temple was like a public battery charging space. Most people have forgotten this nowadays. They just go to the temples, ask for something, bum bounce on the temple floor, and then leave. This is quite pointless. The idea is to sit and imbibe the energies of the place. At the Dhyana Linga Yogic Temple in Coimbatore, you are not required to believe in anything to reap its benefits. You are not required to pray or make any ritual offering. You are encouraged just to close your eyes and be in the space for some time. If you were to try it for yourself, you would discover that it is a tremendous experience. Dhyana Linga is in the highest level of intensity that any form can be. Even if those who do not know anything about meditation and come and sit there, they become meditative by their own nature. This is the kind of remarkable tool it is. If I were given the necessary support and opportunity, I would like to consecrate the whole planet. This is what I'm good at, turning thin air into very powerful, vibrant space, turning a piece of metal or stone into a divine reverberation. It is my dream that someday all of humanity should live in a consecrated environment. Your home should be consecrated, your street should be consecrated, your office should be consecrated, all places where you spend your time should be consecrated. When you live in such a space, your evolution need not stick to Darwinian scale. You can simply leapfrog ahead to a state of ultimate well-being and freedom. In India, most ancient temples were built for Shiva or that which is not. There are thousands of Shiva temples in the country, and most of them do not have any idol as such. They generally have a representative form, a linga. The word linga means the form. When creation began to happen, or when the unmanifest became manifest, the first form that it assumed was that of an ellipsoid, or a three-dimensional ellipse, which is what we call a linga. It started as an ellipsoid and then took on many shapes and forms. If you go into deep states of meditativeness, you will find that before a point of absolute dissolution, once again the energy takes on the form of a linga. Modern cosmologists have identified that the core of every galaxy is always an ellipsoid. So generally in yoga, The linga is considered to be the perfect and fundamental form in existence. It is the first form and the final form. In the space between, creation takes place. What lies beyond is that which is not, or Shiva. So, the linga form is actually an opening in the fabric of creation. For physical creation, the front door is a linga and the back door is a linga. This makes the temple an opening in the fabric of the physical. You could fall right through it and go beyond. This is what makes it such a tremendous possibility. Interestingly, lingas are found all over the world. In Africa, there are terracotta lingas, largely used for occult purposes. In Delphi, Greece, there is a linga below the ground known as the navel of the earth. This is purely a Manipura linga meant to promote prosperity and material well-being. When someone showed me a picture of it, I immediately knew what type of people had consecrated this. It was definitely done by Indian yogis thousands of years ago. There is no doubt about that. When I consecrated Adi Yogi, the abode of yoga in Tennessee, in the year 2015, it was an event of considerable spiritual import. In fact, a milestone for classical yoga in the Western world. Having seen various ancient sites of interest, I am quite certain nothing of this kind of energetic significance has happened in North America or indeed in the Western Hemisphere in the last 3,000 years. Consecrated through the process of prana pratishta, the space is a tribute to Adi Yogi, the world's first yogi, exclusively dedicated to the pursuit and practice of yoga. The space represents a living repository of the highest level of energetic vibrancy and exuberance and offers a unique spiritual possibility to seekers in the West. Most of the lingas in India right now represent one chakra or two at the most. They are invariably consecrated for material well-being. There are some anahata lingas consecrated to promote peace and joy as well. The uniqueness of Dhyana Linga is that it has all 7 chakras energized at their peak. To create 7 separate lingas of 7 chakras would have been so much easier, but the impact would not have been the same. So the Dhyana Linga is like the energy body of the most evolved being, referred to in the yogic culture as Shiva. Eternally available to all, this is the highest possible manifestation. If you push energy up to very high levels of intensity, it can hold form only until a certain point. Beyond that, it becomes formless. People are largely incapable of experiencing it. Dhyana Linga has been consecrated in such a way that the energy has been crystallized at the highest point beyond which there can be no form. It was created so that the intimacy of sitting with a live guru is available to every seeker who longs for it. Above all, what makes the Dhyana Linga an immense and unprecedented spiritual possibility is the fact that it represents the opportunity to experience life in its complete depth and totality. One who comes into this sphere is influenced on the level of akashic or etheric body or Vijnanamaya Kosha. If you bring about a certain transformation through physical, mental or energy body, it can be lost in the course of life. But once you are touched on the level of your etheric body, it is forever. Even if you go through many lifetimes, this seed of liberation will wait for the right opportunity to sprout and flower. It took me 3.5 years of very intense process of consecration to complete the Dhyana Linga. Many yogis and adepts have attempted to create such a linga, but for various reasons, all the required ingredients never came together. This was not my will. It is my Guru's will. Though my contact with my master was momentary, It has in every way been momentous. It has directed every step of my life, including my very birth. The Dhyana Linga has finally been accomplished with His grace and with the love, support and understanding of many people who gave of themselves knowingly or unknowingly, willingly or unwillingly, consciously or unconsciously. I am grateful to them all. Mountains of grace, not suffering. In my motorcycle days, I used to ride all over the country. One day when I was in a remote area, a freak accident occurred and my calf muscle was slashed right up to the bone. So I went to a local clinic, asked the doctor to fix my leg. The doctor examined the wound and said there was no way he could because he had no anesthetic facility. He suggested that I rush to a bigger hospital and seek immediate medical attention. I said I didn't have the time, that I had to continue my journey because I had a schedule to meet. I told him he had to fix it. He refused. I was bleeding profusely. After much argument, he gave in because a pool of blood was gathering where I stood. So without any anesthesia, he began to put my muscle together, which took about 52 sutures on 3 different levels. Through this entire process, I was having a conversation with him. He was sweating and puffing through it all. After it was over, he asked me incredulously, "Is there no pain in your leg at all?" There was pain, terrible, unbearable pain. But pain is a natural phenomenon, and it is good. Without it, you wouldn't know if your leg was chopped off, but suffering is another matter altogether. Pain is bad enough, why make it worse with suffering? Suffering is entirely self-created, and every human being has the choice to suffer or not to suffer. It doesn't take much intelligence to choose the latter. The karmic conundrum. Once it happened, on a certain day, Shankaran Pillai was sitting in a bar with his buddies. Suddenly the clock struck 8. Shankaran Pillai put down his glass, rose and started walking toward the door. His friend said, "Hey, what's the problem? Where are you going? Why don't you finish your drink?" But Shankaran Pillai kept walking wordlessly, zombie-like, towards the door. The friends laughed and said, "Okay, now we know, it's 8 o'clock, you got to go home. You're afraid of your wife, aren't you? What are you, a man or a mouse?" Shankaran Pillai stopped, turned around and said, "I am the man in the house. If I were a mouse, my wife would be afraid of me." He walked slowly home. His wife's rule was that he should reach home by 8. Today, the man-mouse argument and his slow, inebriated pace had delayed him. His wife was sitting on the porch, rolling pin in hand. She glowered at him and said, "You fool, once again drinking? Come here, I will show you." Shankaran Pillai was a frail but agile man. He walked toward her meekly, but then suddenly leapt over her and ran into the house. She rose and lumbered after him. He made her run all over the house, confident that she would never be able to catch him. After much running around, he darted into the bedroom and scampered and hid under the bed. She rushed behind him. She was a big woman, could not slip under the bed. He lay there, secure, as she hollered, "You coward, what are you doing under the bed? Come out! Are you a man or a mouse?" Shankaran Pillai replied, "I am the man of this house. I have the freedom to lie down wherever I want." It was the only place he could be at that moment, but he needed to claim it was his freedom. Unfortunately, most human beings are doing much the same thing. They are labeling their compulsions, their limitations as their choices. If you can joyfully do whatever is needed in a given situation, this is freedom. But limiting yourself to doing only what you like is a horribly compulsive way to live. This compulsiveness is the trick of karma, that ancient word that has been mangled by popular usage across the world. What exactly is karma? Karma literally means action. Action is of three kinds. It would be in terms of body, mind or energy. Whatever you do with your body, mind or energy leaves a certain residue. This residue forms a pattern of its own, and these resultant patterns stay with you. When you gather a huge volume of impressions, slowly these shape themselves into tendencies, and you become like an automatic toy, a slave to your patterns, a puppet of your past. Karma is like old software that you have written for yourself. Unconsciously, depending on the type of actions that you perform, you write your software. Once you write a certain type of software, your whole system functions accordingly. Based on the information from the past, certain memory patterns are formed and keep recurring. Now life is just cyclical. This is why the same patterns keep returning in your life. There are a few variations, but they remain essentially the same, repeating themselves across generations. After a while, this repetitiveness can be deadly. It is important to see that these patterns rule you from within, not from without. No one has to exercise any external control upon you. Your inner autocrat rules you all the time. You may think it is a new day. Circumstances may change, but internally you are experiencing the same thing over and over again. And so, the more things change, the more they stay the same, not physically but experientially. You are helplessly stuck in the karmic rut. Freedom is now an empty word because the way you think, feel and understand life, even the way you sit, stand and move, is conditioned by your past impressions. From the moment you were born, your parents, your family, your education, your friends, where you lived, where you traveled, all this decided everything about you. Karma is encrypted on every aspect of life. It is imprinted on your mental memory, the fundamentals of your body, your chemistry, your very energy. These are all backup systems. Even if you lose your body or your mind, you still do not lose your karma. The backup systems are so efficient. What you consider to be your personality, the bundle of traits and tendencies that you are, is because of information you have gathered unconsciously. These tendencies have been traditionally described as vasanas. The word vasana literally means smell. Depending upon what type of garbage is in the bin today, that is created and consumed by your own system and which has a tremendous impact on health and well-being. It means that the human system is wonderfully self-contained. Other similar chemicals have been discovered more recently as well, but this particular chemical has been named Anandamide, based on the Sanskrit word Ananda, which means bliss. We can infer from this that happiness is just a certain kind of chemistry. Peace is another kind of chemistry. In fact, every kind of pleasantness that we experience, whether peace or joy or ecstasy, is a kind of chemistry. The yogic system has always known this. There is a technology for inner well-being, for creating a chemical basis for a blissful existence. This is one dimension of what I call inner engineering. If you are aware you can activate your system in such a way that simply breathing is an enormous pleasure. All it takes is willingness to pay a little attention to the inner mechanism. This is the fundamental shift in understanding that has to happen. Do not look for a way out of misery. Do not look for a way out of suffering. There is only one way, and that is in. Most people think peace and joy are the goals of the spiritual life. This is a fallacy. Peace and joy are the basic requirements for a life of well-being. If you want to enjoy your dinner tonight, you must be peaceful and happy. If you want to enjoy your family, the work that you do, and the world that you live in, you must be peaceful and happy. Peace and joy are not things you attain at the end of your life, they are the basis of your life. If you consider peace to be the ultimate goal, you will only rest in peace. The word spirituality is one of the most corrupted words on the planet. Don't walk the spiritual path for peace. It is because most people are so deprived of peace that they consider it to be the ultimate aspiration. When I was in Tel Aviv some years ago, I was told that shalom was the highest form of greeting possible. I asked why. Because it means peace, I was told. I said, why would peace be the highest aspiration unless you're in the Middle East? If you were on a desert island without food for 10 days and suddenly God appeared before you, would you want Him to appear as a shining light or in the form of bread? In India, certain communities worship food as God because they have been deprived of food for a long time. In California, love is God. Whatever you feel deprived of looks like the highest aspiration. The thing to remember is, none of these will settle you in any enduring way. Human life is longing for unlimited expansion, and that is the only thing that will settle you for good. The spiritual quest is not a cultivated choice. It is not an induced quest. It is a natural longing. But unless you handle it consciously, it will not yield. When being peaceful, blissful, and joyous are not efforts anymore, you naturally start seeking, want to know the nature of life. Mysticism on this planet evolved only in those places where people learned the technology of being ecstatic by their own nature. This is because only when you are blissful will you be in the highest state of receptivity, truly willing to explore all aspects of life. Otherwise, you would not dare, because if keeping yourself pleasant is a big challenge, you cannot take on other challenges. Once it happened. An 85-year-old man went fishing in Louisiana. When he was just about to call it a day, he caught a frog. He was about to release it into the marsh again when the frog spoke. "Just kiss me passionately," it said, "and I will turn into a beautiful young woman." The old man inspected the frog for a long time. The frog puckered up its lips in anticipation. Then the old man put the frog into his fish bag. The frog screamed, "Didn't you hear me? Just one kiss and I will turn into a really beautiful young woman." The old man said, "At my age, there is not much I can do with a beautiful young woman. If kissing you could turn me into a handsome young prince, that would be different. But for now, a talking frog, believe me, I can smell money." Choices that you make out of inability are not life solutions. An inability to be joyful by your own nature can make the simplest issues in life seem like highly complex problems. Right now, being peaceful and joyful is made out to be the most significant problem in human existence. In pursuit of human happiness, we are ripping the planet apart. The reason the simple things like being peaceful, joyful and loving have become ultimate aspirations is that people are living without paying any attention to the life process. When most people say life, they mean the accessories of life, their work, their family, their relationships, the homes they live in, the cars they drive, the clothes they wear, or the gods they pray to. The one thing that they miss is life, the life process itself, the essential life that is you. The moment you make this fundamental mistake of identifying something that is not you as yourself, life becomes an unnecessary struggle. The foundations of peace and bliss are not about attending to the external realities of your life, but in accessing and organizing the inner nature of your being. You are capable of experiencing only that which is within the boundaries of your sensation. But if you throw the boundary of your sensation out in an expanded form, you can sit here and experience everyone and everything as yourself. You can stretch it further and you can experience the very cosmos as you experience your own body. When this sense of inclusiveness happened to me, I understood that being loving and compassionate is not an idea. To live in empathy is not some esoteric principle. This is the way a human being is made. If you do not identify with anything you have accumulated over a period of time, including your body and mind, you will be able to experience this. Enlightenment is not an attainment or an achievement. It is a homecoming. Your senses give you the impression that you are experiencing the outside, but you have never experienced the outside. When you realize that all you experience is within, that absolute homecoming is enlightenment. My life is just devoted to evolving methods so that people can experience this inclusiveness. If we truly have to create solutions that are relevant for all, an experience of absolute inclusiveness has to happen to humanity, and it is possible. The reason why everyone is not naturally enlightened is simply this: people have categorized the world into good and bad, God and devil, high and low, sacred and filthy, pure and impure, heaven and hell. These are parallel lines that will never meet. Once you have fractured this existence within yourself, there is no way to reach a state of enduring well-being and freedom. You have been told to love your enemy. If you first label someone your enemy and then try to love him or her, it is going to be torturous. Once you have fragmented creation like this, there is no way to arrive at a state of absolute inclusiveness. The problem is that human beings have lost a fundamental distinction between inward and outward, between their way of being and the way they transact with the external world. Transactions are different according to the nature of situation or relationship. However remote or intimate, transactions are always governed by laws or norms. But when it comes to our inner nature, there is only one governing principle: borderless unity. Our physical and social worlds are governed by boundaries. Our inner world needs none. To attain the ecstasy of borderless unity, which is our natural state, all you need to do is live by the guideline that all human experience is generated from within, either with the support of external stimuli or without. That is all. If you establish this within yourself absolutely, the consequences of your transactions will no longer be burdensome. What do we mean by this? People often ask me, maybe this is possible for you as a yogi, but how can we who live in the real world make our interactions free of friction? I remind them that I don't live in a cave. I also lead people. I do work around the world with millions of volunteers. This means they usually aren't trained for the job they're doing, and you can't fire them. Do you know how difficult it is to manage such a situation? By implication, my life should be the most burdensome, but you won't ever see me distressed because my way of being is not in any way enslaved to what's happening outside. This is not an otherworldly achievement. It is possible for everyone to live this way. If you still believe that someone up there is going to rescue you and solve all your problems, just remember that you are living on a round planet and one that is spinning. So whenever you look up, you are obviously looking in the wrong direction. In this vast, ever-expanding cosmos, what's up and what's down, you have no clue. Nowhere in the cosmos is it marked this side up. The only distinction you do know right now is within and without, although for the yogi, even this distinction has vanished. Thousands of years ago, a yogi appeared in the upper regions of Himalayas. He came to be known as Adi Yogi, the first yogi, and it was he who bequeathed the science of yoga to 7 disciples, who later carried it around the world. What he imparted to these disciples was an unimaginably profound system of self-exploration and transformation, based on the radical premise that it is possible for a human being to evolve consciously. Unlike biological evolution, which happens without our conscious participation, spiritual evolution can happen consciously. All it takes, Adiyogi told us, is willingness. Once your joy is on self-start rather than push-start, you have upgraded your technology. You are no longer enslaved to an external source, whether a person or a situation. You are now capable of being loving and blissful without doing anything in particular, just sitting here, no matter how anyone in the outside world behaves. Once you experience this inner freedom, you will never experience insecurity in your life again. And anyway, when you are a truly blissful human being, everyone will naturally want to be around you. Blissfulness means life is happening in an exuberant manner, and that is all life seeks. So how does one upgrade one's inner technology? We will look at this at length in following chapters, but a fundamental step would be to recognize consciously just this: my ability to respond is limitless, but my ability to act is limited. I am 100% responsible for everything that I am and everything I am not, for my capabilities and my incapabilities, for my joys and my miseries. I am the one who determines the nature of my experience in this life and beyond. I am the maker of my life. Absolutely nothing is required, no reaction or action, no capability other than being aware of the basic fact that your responsibility is limitless. You could sit in one place and be aware of it. You could walk on the street and be aware of it. You could be working, cooking, or even lying in bed and be aware of it. Let me ask you another question. Whatever your religion or cultural background, what exactly do you mean when you use the word God? The forms, the names, the ideas are varied, but essentially, when you say God, you mean that which is responsible for everything in the universe. Suppose God said, I will not be responsible for you. He is most definitely fired. The very word God signifies limitless responsibility. So responsibility is not a teaching in civics. It is the simplest and easiest way for you to express your own divinity. The whole effort of the spiritual process is to break the boundaries you have drawn for yourself. Experience the immensity that you are. The aim is to unshackle yourself from the limited identity you have forged as a result of your own ignorance and live the way the Creator made you, utterly blissful and infinitely responsible. After my experience on Chamundi Hill, one thing became clear to me. In life, there is no this and that, there is only this and this. This means everything is here and now. The access to everything is here and now. It lies only in one's ability to respond, in one's ability to experience and express the divine. There is no yes and no, there is just yes and yes. The choice is yours. You can either react to life with yes and no, which will mean a perpetual division of this existence, which is the basis of repetitive cycles of conflict and misery, or you can become one big yes to life. Limited responsibility is a way of drawing boundaries. What you think you are responsible for will be within your boundary. What you think you are not responsible for will be outside your boundary. But limitless responsibility extends itself way beyond your present level of understanding and perception. There is more, much more to life than you are aware of right now. Once you choose to become conscious of this simple fact, my ability to respond is limitless. Suddenly, life within you reorganizes itself in a completely different way. You move into higher and higher levels of freedom within yourself. Life is now a wonderful, exhilarating journey of self-discovery. The outside world has seen its share of bloody revolutions. They were violent because there were some people who were willing to change and there were some who were unwilling. But in the inner life, there is only one kind of revolution, and it is a silent one. It is about moving from unwillingness to willingness. When you are in a certain state of insufficiency, you keep thinking that everything will be okay once your dreams are realized. But if all the things that you dreamt of happen very quickly, you suddenly realize that although everything is happening as you thought it should, life still remains unfulfilled and your longings persist. Until you break this cycle, there is no real choice in your life. Sometimes you may have felt you have experienced a breakthrough. Things seem to have changed and everything seems great for the next 3 days. But on the 4th day, you fall back into the same rut. Hasn't this happened to you any number of times? That is because there is no freedom of thought, emotion, action, and above all, no freedom of experience as long as you're in the karmic grip. At the same time, avoiding karma is not the answer either. Avoidance may give you some balance and stability in day-to-day life, but slowly it saps you of life and joy. This is very negative karma in itself. Denying, suppressing and avoiding life brings more bondage than freedom. The desire, I don't want karma, is itself a big karma. The very process of living is itself a dissolution of karma. If you live every moment of your life totally, you dissolve enormous amounts of karma. When you experience everything that comes your way absolutely, when you experience every life breath with utmost intensity, without the distractions of thought and emotion, devoid of any psychological drama, you are liberated from the very process of birth and death. You are not only more alive, you are life itself. Yoga offers a way to distance yourself not just from your karma, but from the very source of karma, which is the discriminatory intellect. It offers you the choice every moment of your existence to be either a victim or a spectator or the very master of your life. With a certain amount of effort and practice, we can all write a software of joy and well-being for ourselves. Sadhana. When you realize that all your material achievements are of value only in comparison with those who do not have them, this is joy that springs from another's deprivation. Can you really call this joy? Isn't it actually a kind of sickness? It is time everyone address this. If you were alone on this planet, what would you want for yourself? Ask yourself this question and see where it takes you. Try this. Sit alone for 5 minutes and see what your life would be like if you were absolutely alone in this world. If there were nobody or nothing to compare yourself with, what would you truly long for? What would really matter to you if there were no external appreciation or critique? If you do this every day, you will become aligned with the longings of the life that you are, rather than the accumulated karmic mess that you believe you are. The mechanics of life. Fundamentally, Kriya means internal action. An internal action is one that does not involve either the body or the mind or the physical dimensions of energy. As we have established earlier, the body and the mind are yours, but still external to you. You have gathered both from the outside. The body is an accumulation of food and the mind an accumulation of impressions. Even the imprints upon the energy body are an accumulation of the impressions of the 5 senses. When you have the ability to perform action with the non-physical aspect of your energy, then it is termed a Kriya. All this may sound somewhat esoteric, but only if you are inducted by someone who has mastery over the realms of energy will it become possible for you to practice Kriya. If your actions find outward expression involving body, mind and the physical dimensions of energy, this is karma. If you turn inward and perform an action beyond all dimensions of physicality, that is Kriya. Karma is the process of binding you. Kriya is the process of liberating you. Most significant aspect of yoga is always to perform action beyond the physical dimensions of energy. Among the 4 dimensions of physicality, you are most conscious of the bodily actions, less of the mental, much less of the emotional, and negligibly of the energetic. The moment you learn to perform action with the non-physical aspect of your life energy, you suddenly move to a new level of freedom within and outside of yourself. How do you access the non-physical aspect of your life energy? The yogic practices which involve postures, breath, attitudes of mind and energy activation are all essentially oriented toward aligning the first 3 layers of the body, the physical, the mental and the energetic body. It is only in aligning them that you find access to dimensions beyond physical, to the fundamental life energy itself. I have seen any number of people who start doing a simple Kriya and suddenly become so creative that they are able to achieve things that they never imagined possible in their lives. This is simply because they loosened their karmic foundations a little. They shook up their life energies for a change instead of being entangled with their physical processes of body, mind and energy. This is something every human being can learn to do. Kriya Yoga is a very powerful way to walk the spiritual path, but at the same time, it is tremendously demanding. For most modern urban people who are unaccustomed to using their body in its full versatility, Kriya Yoga could seem arduous and inhuman. This is because Kriyas are elaborate and involve a great deal of discipline, focus and exactitude. Most people do not have the body, the attitude, or the stability of emotion for this yoga path, primarily because they are used to living right from their childhood in perpetual state of comfort. Being used to a level of physical comfort is not a problem, but being in constant quest of comfort, this is a great problem. That kind of attitude and emotion is unsuitable for the path of Kriya Yoga. Also, Kriya Yoga cannot be done with people who talk freedom all the time. It is not for people who keep asking, why am I not free to eat my ice cream? Why can't I wake up whenever I feel like it? Why can't I eat, drink and have sex with whoever, whenever I feel like? If you take the path of Kriya, a certain fundamental discipline has to be brought into all physical, psychological and emotional processes. If you want to hit the peak of your consciousness, this discipline is essential. You cannot be partying till early morning and attempt to scale Mount Everest tomorrow. The same logic holds true here. When you are given a certain Kriya Yoga regimen, you have to follow it. You may understand the need for the discipline as you go along, but it can never be fully explained. And if it has to be explained, the essence of Kriya will be lost. This is because Kriya is a tool to transcend the framework of logic and experience in order to access those non-physical dimensions that are considered spiritual or mystical. If I want to teach you Kriyas just as practices, it would be simple to put them in a book form which you could learn and memorize them. But for the Kriya to be a live process, to be imprinted in your system in a certain way, it needs a certain discipline, dedication and receptivity. When you walk a completely new terrain, if there is no trust in the one who guides you, then the journey becomes unnecessarily long and difficult. Generally, on the path of Kriya, most gurus make the disciples wait. Traditionally, when students went to a guru to learn Kriya Yoga, they might well have been told to sweep the floor for a year, then wash the dishes for another. If their trust still did not waver, then the guru might consider initiating them into the Kriyas. There is a reason for this. Once you empower people in a particular way that makes the system vibrant beyond normal standards, they can cause great damage to themselves if their attitudes and emotions are not as they should be. But in today's world, to get that kind of time with people, to arrive at that kind of trust, then imprint these Kriyas is difficult. It is not impossible, but the chances are becoming remote. I spent 21 years of my life transforming a powerful Kriya, the Shambhavi Mahamudra, in order that it might be taught to large numbers of people in today's world. Certain aspects that could empower people either to harm themselves or others, or influence the elements around them, have been firewalled, so only the physical, psychological and spiritual benefits remain. For those 2 decades, I deliberately stayed away from all forms of public outreach, because my entire focus was primarily on recrafting the Kriya to ensure that it could be widely imparted without any adverse effects. Kriya Yoga is a full-fledged path, is important only for those interested in exploring mystical dimensions. If your concern is only well-being, or if you are just seeking realization, Kriyas can be used in a small way. But Kriya Yoga as an exclusive path is not necessary because it requires too much application. If you follow the path of Kriya very intensely without guidance, it may take a few lifetimes to bear fruit. If you have someone to actively guide the process, Kriya can be most powerful and magnificent way to explore the inner nature and mystical phenomena. Otherwise, Kriya is somewhat roundabout route. What you are seeking on this path is not just well-being, blissfulness or realization. Instead, you want to know the very mechanics of life-making. You want to know the engineering of life. That is why it is much longer process. People on the Kriya path have a completely different kind of presence about them because of the mastery over their energies. They can dismantle life and put it back together. If you are pursuing the path of Jnana, for example, your intellect could become razor sharp, but there is still very little you can do with your energies. Similarly, on the path of Bhakti or devotion, there is nothing much you can do with your energies, nor do you care, because the intense sweetness of your emotions is all that matters. You only want to dissolve into the object of your devotion. If you are on the path of karma, you can do many things in the external world, but you can do little with yourself. One force helps you root yourself well on this planet, the other takes you beyond. Self-preservation needs to be limited to the physical body. If you have the necessary awareness to separate the two, there is no conflict. But if you are identified with the physical, then instead of working in collaboration, these two fundamental forces become a source of tension. All of the material versus spiritual struggles of humanity spring from this ignorance. When you say spirituality, you are talking about a dimension beyond the physical. The human desire to transcend the limitations of the physical is a completely natural one. To journey from the boundary-based individual body to the boundless source of creation, this is the very basis of the spiritual process. The walls of self-preservation that you build for today are the walls of self-imprisonment for tomorrow. The boundaries that you establish in your life as a protection for yourself today will feel like constraints tomorrow. Robert Frost captured a deep truth when he wrote, "Something there is that doesn't love a wall." Because your self-preservation instinct keeps telling you, unless you have walls, you are not safe. Unconsciously, you keep building them. Later, you struggle with them. This is an endless cycle. But creation is not unwilling to open to you the doors to the beyond. It is not creation's unwillingness that you are struggling with. You are struggling with the walls of resistance that you have built around yourself. This is why the yogic system does not talk about God. It does not talk about soul or heaven. Such talk invariably makes people hallucinatory. Yoga talks only about barriers that you have set up, because this resistance is all that needs to be attended to. The Creator is not looking for your attention. The ropes that bind you and the walls that block you, these are 100% your making. And these are all you need to unknot and dismantle. You have no work with existence, you only have work with the existence that you have created. If I were to use an analogy, I would juxtapose gravity and grace. Gravity is related, in a way, to the fundamental instinct of self-preservation in a human being. We are rooted to the planet right now because of gravity. We have a body today only because of gravity. Gravity is trying to hold you down, whereas grace is a force that is trying to lift you up. If you are released from the physical forces of existence, then grace bursts forth in your life. As gravity is active, grace too is constantly active. It is just that you have to make yourself available to it. With gravity, you have no choice, you are available to it anyway. If you are strongly identified with the physical, gravity is all that you will know. But with grace, you have to make yourself receptive. Whatever kind of spiritual practice you do, ultimately you are just working towards making yourself available to grace. When you are available to grace, suddenly you seem to function like magic. Suppose you were the only one who could ride a bicycle. You would begin to seem magical to everyone else. It is the same with grace. Others might think you are magic, but you know you are just beginning to become receptive to a new dimension of life. This possibility is available to everybody. Sadhana. You may have noticed this about yourself. When you're feeling pleasant, you want to expand. When you're fearful, you want to contract. Try this. Sit for a few minutes in front of a plant or tree. Remind yourself that you are inhaling what the tree is exhaling and exhaling what the tree is inhaling. Even if you are not yet experientially aware of it, establish a psychological connection with the plant. You could repeat this several times a day. After a few days, you will start connecting with everything around you differently. You won't limit yourself to a tree. Using this simple process, we at Isha Yoga Center have unleashed an environmental initiative in the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu, under which 30 million trees have been planted since 2004. We spent several years planting trees in people's minds, which is the most difficult terrain. Now transplanting those into land happens that much more effortlessly. Life sense, knowing life beyond the senses. How does the human body make sense of the world? What is its source of knowing? The answer is obvious, through the five senses. Whatever you know of the world or yourself is information you have gathered only through five sense organs, by seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and touching. If these sense organs fold up, you would know neither the world nor yourself. When you sleep every night, suddenly the people around you disappear, the world disappears, and even you disappear. You are still alive, everybody around you is alive, but in your experience, everything evaporates, because these five sense organs have gone into shutdown mode. The sense organs are limited. They can perceive only that which is physical. If your perception is limited to five senses, naturally the scope of your life will be restricted to the physical. Additionally, the senses perceive everything only in relation to something else. If I touch a metal object and it feels cool to my fingers, it is simply because my body temperature is warmer. Suppose I lower my body temperature and touch it, it would feel warm to me. The sense perceptions are absolutely wonderful instruments for human survival. They are turned on at the moment of your birth because they are essential to your survival in the outside world. But if you are seeking something more than survival, they are not enough. They give you a distorted impression of reality because they are entirely relative in their perception. If you are really interested in knowing life in all its depth and dimension, it is imperative that you look inward, not out. Why? Because the essential nature of life does not lie in the physical or psychological expression of body and mind, but in their source. However, looking inward doesn't happen easily. It takes work because you don't yet have the perceptual mechanism to look within. The human predicament is just this: the very seat of your experience is within you, but your perception is entirely outward bound. This is why there is such a big disconnect between within and without. You can see what is outside you, but you cannot see what is inside you. Even if someone whispers, you can hear that, but there is so much activity happening in the body that is beyond your ability to hear. Even if an ant crawls upon your skin, you can sense it right away, but there is so much blood flowing within you and you cannot feel. Your sense organs can only register external sensations of sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. But the source of all experience is within you. An experience may be triggered by an external stimulus, but its origin is always internal. There are times when the same experience can be generated even without an external trigger. Yoga is fundamentally aimed at enhancing your experience beyond the five senses. There is a dimension beyond your five sense perceptions. You can call that dimension whatever you please. You can call it self if you choose, you can call it divine if you choose, you can term it God if you choose. The terminology is entirely up to you. And even if you are not in quest of the divine or the self, enhancing your perception can play a vital role in assuring a fundamental level of well-being. Whatever you are, doctor, policeman, engineer, artist, homemaker or student, fundamentally it is your quality of perception that determines how effective and successful you are and how much you can do on this planet. The expansion of your sense perception beyond its present boundaries can achieve phenomenal results, bringing a completely new and seemingly magical dimension to your life. The common questions are, is it very difficult to enhance my perception? Do I have to withdraw to a Himalayan cave to turn inward? Not at all. This possibility does not come from sitting somewhere on top of a mountain. It is within you. The only reason it has been inaccessible is that you are either busy or preoccupied with what is happening outside or far too engaged in your own psychological drama. It is just a lack of attention which has denied people the possibility of discovering what lies within. Turning inward does not have anything to do with thoughts, ideas, opinions or philosophies. It has nothing to do with the psychological activity of your mind. Enhancing your perception means enhancing your ability to receive life just as it is. If you are willing to dedicate just a few minutes of your life to this every day, you would see the change. The simple process of paying a little bit of attention to your inner nature will transform the quality of your life in remarkable ways. Sadhana. Start by paying attention to everything you think of as yourself. Just before you fall asleep, your thoughts, your emotions, your hair, your skin, your clothes, your makeup. Know that none of this is you. There is no need to make any conclusion about what is you or what truth is. Truth is not a conclusion. If you keep false conclusions at bay, truth will dawn. It is like your experience of the night. The sun has not gone, it is just that the planet is looking the other way. You are thinking, reading, talking about the self because you're too busy looking the other way. You haven't paid enough attention to know what the self really is. What is needed is not a conclusion, but a turnaround. If you manage to enter sleep with this awareness, it will be significant. Since there is no external interference in sleep, this will grow into a powerful experience. Over time, you will enter a dimension beyond all accumulations. Listening to life. There are several ways to attain a state of abiding joy and ultimate union. These are diverse, but it is important that they are all addressed in a balanced and integrated way. There is really no division or hierarchy between these varied approaches. Yoga is completely even-handed. It employs all the aspects of who you are to take you to your ultimate destination. The body constitutes a very large part of who you are in your present understanding. The science of using the body to hasten your evolutionary process is Hatha Yoga. Ha denotes the sun, Tha denotes the moon. Hatha Yoga is the science of bringing about a balance between these two dimensions within the human system. The human body has its own attitudes, its own resistance, its own temperament. What was happening inside me was even more phenomenal. Within 6 weeks, a huge flood of memory descended, literally lifetimes of memory. I was now aware of 1,000,000 different things happening inside me in a single moment. It was like a kaleidoscope. My logical mind told me none of this could be true. What I was seeing inside myself was clearer than daylight. But I secretly hoped it was false. I had always seen myself as a smart young man. Suddenly, I appeared to be a clueless young fool, and that bewilderment was something I could not come to terms with. But I found to my chagrin that everything my memory was telling me was true. Until this time, I had completely refused to accept anything in my life that did not fit into a rational and logical framework. Slowly, I began to realize that it is life that is the ultimate intelligence. Human intellect is mere smartness that ensures survival. But true intelligence is just life, and that which is the source of life, nothing else. The world has been told that the divine is love, that the divine is compassion. But if you pay attention to creation, you realize that the divine, or whatever is the source of creation, is above all the greatest intelligence that you can imagine. Instead of trying to tap into this all-powerful intelligence that pulsates within each of us, we opt to use our logical intellect, which is useful in certain situations but essentially limited. I also began to experience a heightened sensitivity to the feelings of others. Sometimes just the sight of an unknown person on the street in a state of grief could make me weep. I could not believe the states of misery that human beings were capable of enduring, when here I was, simply bursting with ecstasy for no reason at all. It took me a while for me to realize that what was happening to me was something spiritual. I began to understand that what the sacred traditions and scriptures had extolled as the ultimate experience was happening to me, that I was experiencing, in fact, the most beautiful thing that can happen to a human being. Moment to moment, every cell in my body was exploding with nameless ecstasies. Right now, people glorify childhood because a child can laugh and be happy for no reason at all. But I saw that it is possible to be ecstatic in one's adulthood as well. It is possible for every human being because all we can ever experience happens from within us. I began to realize that the physical transformation in my appearance was actually a realignment of my entire inner constitution. I had been practicing a basic set of physical postures or Hatha Yoga since I was 12 years old. Those 13-odd years of yoga bore fruit at this time. Yoga is essentially a way of recreating the body so that it serves a higher purpose. The human body can function as a piece of flesh and blood or as the very source of creation. There is a whole technology for transforming the human into the divine. The human spine isn't just a bad alignment of bones. It is the very axis of the universe. It just depends on how you recognize your system. In my case, from being a physically intense person, I learned to carry my body as if it were not there at all. My physicality became very relaxed. Earlier, all that intensity was in my body. People could feel that if I entered a room, it meant action, but now I learned to carry my body differently. And that is when I realized that this experience I had had was really yoga. This experience of union with existence, of oneness with all life, of boundlessness was yoga. The simple set of yogic postures or asanas I had been practicing daily was about physical fitness, or so I thought. But after that experience on Chamandi Hill, I realized that what I was doing was actually a process that could deliver me to a dimension far beyond the physical. And that is why I tell people, even if you get into yoga for the wrong reasons, it still works. There is something within every human being that dislikes boundaries, that is longing to become boundless. Human nature is such that we always yearn to be something more than what we are right now. No matter how much we achieve, we still want to be something more. If we just looked at this closely, we would realize that this longing is not for more, this longing is for all. We are all seeking to become infinite. The only problem is that we are seeking it in installments. Imagine that you were locked up in a cubicle of 5 feet by 5 feet. However comfortable it is, you would long to be free of it. The next day, if you were released into a larger cubicle of 10 feet by 10 feet, you would feel great for a while, but soon the same longing to break the boundary would return. It does not matter how large a boundary we set, the moment you become conscious of it, the longing to break it is instinctive. In the East, this longing has been culturally recognized as the highest goal of all human activity and endeavor. Freedom or mukti or moksha is seen as the natural longing in every human being and our ultimate destination. It is just because we are unconscious of it that we seek to fulfill it in installments, whether through acquisition of power, money, love or knowledge, or through that other great pastime of today, shopping. The moment I realized that human desire was not for any particular thing, but just to expand illimitably, a certain clarity rose within me. When I saw that everyone is capable of this, it felt natural to want to share it. My whole aim since then has been to somehow rub this experience off on other people, to awaken them to the fact that this state of joy, of freedom, of limitlessness cannot be denied to them unless they stand in the way of the natural effervescence of life. This condition of ecstatic well-being that has been mine since that afternoon on Chamandi Hill is neither a distant possibility nor a pipe dream. It is a living reality for those who are willing. It is the birthright of every human being. The way out is in. Everything you have done in your life so far has been in pursuit of a single thing. Whether you sought a career, started a business, made money, or built a family, it was always because you wanted just one simple thing: joy. But somewhere along the way, life got complicated. If you had been born as any other creature on this planet, it would have been very simple. Your needs would have just been physical. A full stomach would have been equivalent to a great day. Take a look at your dog or your cat. The moment their stomach is full, they are quite peaceful. But when you come into this world as a human being, things change. An empty stomach is one problem, hunger. But a full stomach, 100 problems. When our survival is in question, it is a big issue in our lives. But the moment it is taken care of, it doesn't seem to mean anything. Somehow, for a human being, life doesn't seem to end with survival. Life begins with survival. Today, as a generation of people, our survival process is better organized than ever before. You can go to a supermarket and buy everything you need for the entire year. You can do it without even stepping out of your home. Never before in the history of humanity has such a thing been possible. Gastronomic sense. If you observe the natural cycle of the body, you will find there is something called a mandala. A mandala is a cycle of 40 to 48 days that the human system goes through. In every cycle, there will be 3 days on which your body does not need food. If you are conscious of how your body functions, you will become aware that on a particular day the body does not require food. Without effort, you can go without food on that day. Even dogs and cats have this awareness. On a particular day, they often choose not to eat. The day the system says no food is a clean-up day. Since most people are not aware of which day their body should go without food, the day of Ekadashi was fixed in the Indian calendar. Ekadashi is the 11th day of the lunar segment and recurs every 14 days. It is traditionally regarded as the day to fast. If some people are unable to go without food because their activity levels demand it, or if they do not have the appropriate spiritual practice to support it, they can opt to go on a fruit diet. If you force yourself to fast without preparing your body and mind sufficiently, you will only cause damage to your health. But if your body, mind and energy are properly prepared with the necessary practices, then fasting can be of much benefit to you. People who are constantly on nicotine and caffeine will find fasting can become very difficult. So before fasting, prepare the body by consuming the right kind of nourishment, particularly high water content foods like fruits and vegetables. It may not be a good thing for everybody to fast, but it has many benefits if it is done with proper understanding. The entire aim and endeavor of yoga is to open up the cocoon of the physical body to the larger sensory body where you experience everything as a part of you. Fasting is an extension of this logic. It is a way of nourishing yourself without any active ingestion. It may be done as a detoxification process nowadays, but this is an internal rationale. This is why every spiritual tradition in the world has fixed a certain period of fasting for its adherents. In the yogic tradition, fasting period was fixed according to the lunar cycle. This is because your ability to assimilate energy from water, air and sunlight is greater on certain days of the lunar cycle. In some religions, the fasting period was fixed in peak summer when the consumption of water and sun by the human system would naturally be high. My great-grandmother, a wonderful old woman, often considered eccentric by those who didn't know any better, would frequently give away her food to ants and sparrows. Tears of bliss would be streaming down her face as she did this. People around her kept saying, "Why don't you eat, you old woman?" She'd simply reply, "I am full." But all those self-appointed advisors died a long time before she did. She lived on and died at the incredible age of 113. My mother used to do this as well. Every day before she ate her breakfast, she would take one handful of it and go looking for ants to feed. Only then would she eat. This has been a tradition among the women folk In many families, an ant is the smallest living entity you can see around you and most inconsequential organism you can think of. So for that very reason, you feed it first. You make an offering not to the gods or to other celestial creatures, but to the smallest creature you know. This planet belongs as much to them as it belongs to you. You understand that every creature on this planet has the same right to live as you have. This awareness can help create a conducive atmosphere, mentally and physically, for the consciousness to grow. Just a simple act like this loosens you from your identification with the physical body. As you become less of a body, your awareness in your mornings and evenings. What is making the difference is the level of relaxation that sleep brings. If you could remain relaxed while performing all the activity of the day, you would be about the same in the evening in terms of energy and enthusiasm as you were in the morning. If you wake up fresh, that is a good beginning, but slowly through the day, as your relaxation levels come down, you gradually start feeling stressed. Stress is not because of work. This is important to remember. Everybody thinks their job is stressful. No job is stressful. There are many jobs that could present challenging situations. There could be nasty bosses, insecure colleagues, emergency rooms, impossible deadlines, or you might even find yourself in the middle of a war zone. But these are not inherently stressful. It is your compulsive reaction to the situations in which we are placed that causes stress. Stress is a certain level of internal friction. One can easily lubricate the inner mechanism with some amount of inner work and awareness. So it is your inability to handle your own system that is stressing you out. On some level, you do not know how to handle your body, mind and emotions. That is the problem. How then do you keep your system free of stress so that you remain in the same level of enthusiasm, relaxation and happiness, whether it is morning or evening? An average person's pulse rate on an empty stomach would be in the 70s or even 80s. For a person doing the right type of meditative practice, you will find that the pulse rate would range between 30s and 40s. Even after a good lunch, it would stay in the 50s. This is just one parameter that indicates the level of restfulness that your body is experiencing moment to moment. The most horrific things in life can be a source of nourishment if you accept, I am responsible for the way I am right now. It is possible to transform the greatest adversity into a stepping stone for self-transformation. If you take 100% responsibility for the way you are now, a brighter tomorrow is a possibility. But if you take no responsibility for the present, if you blame your parents, your friend, your husband, your wife, your colleagues for the way you are, you have forsaken your future even before it comes. You come into this world with nothing. You go empty-handed. The wealth of life lies only in how you have allowed its experiences to enrich you. Filth can blossom into the fragrance of a flower. Manure can transform itself into the sweetness of a mango. No adversity is an impediment if you are in a state of conscious response, no matter what the nature of the situation you are in. It can only enhance your experience of life if you allow it to. Resentment, anger, jealousy, pain, hurt and depression are poisons that you drink but expect someone else to die. Life does not work like that. Most people take lifetimes to understand this simple truth. Now that we have established what responsibility is, it is time to look at what it is not. Let us start by clearing up a few fundamental misconceptions. For one, many believe that taking responsibility compromises their freedom. This seems to be logically true on a simplistic level. Existentially, it is completely off the mark. Which is freedom? You have choices or you have none. Your logical mind tells you give up all responsibility and you will be free. But in your experience of life, the more you are able to respond to everything around you, the freer you are. The logical and experiential dimensions of life work in diametrically opposite ways. Logic is not without its uses, but it helps only to handle the material aspects of life. If you handle your entire life with logic alone, you will end up a mess. Secondly, people often confuse responsibility with reaction. We have already demonstrated earlier that there is a world of difference between the two. The first is born in awareness, the second in unawareness. The first is born in consciousness, the second in unconsciousness. The first is freedom, the second is enslavement. It is time to make yet another distinction. Responsibility is not reaction, but it is not action either. Responsibility and action belong to different dimensions. The ability to respond gives you the freedom to act. It also gives you the freedom not to act. It puts you in the driver's seat of your life. It empowers you to decide the nature and volume of action you want to undertake. Responsibility is not compulsive action. It offers you the whole choice of action. Can you act upon everything in the world today? No. But you can respond to everything in the world today. Action has to be judiciously performed depending upon a careful analysis of resources, strength, capability, energy, situation. Your ability to act is always limited, but there are no limitations on your ability to respond. If you are willing, you can respond to just about everything. Just because you are responsible for your children, are you able to do everything for them? If you did everything for them, you would mess up their lives. Your sense of responsibility makes you do certain things for them and not do others. So responsibility does not mean unbridled action, far from it. How, you may ask, are you responsible for the violence and injustice in the world? How are you responsible for the war and the bloodshed, the atrocities against the marginal and the underprivileged all over the world? Certainly you are not to blame for any of it, but the moment you become conscious of any of these events, you do respond either in concern, love, care, hate, anger, indignation, or even action. It is just that this is often an unconscious reaction rather than a conscious response. If you make this ability to respond into your willing process, that marks the birth of a tremendous new possibility within you. Your inner genius begins to flower.